Good evening and welcome.
Hold on. Wait.
I'm happy.
Steve really wants to be the law.
Yes.
He's like, I'm talking now. All right, now you go.
Good evening and welcome to the Charlton Board of Selectmen, June 14th, 2022 meeting. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a little bit of a busy meeting tonight. We're going to try to move right through it. I would take we have to approve the regular minutes of the regular meeting. I'll take these one at a time on May 10th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Minutes of the special meeting, pre-town meeting, May 16th at 6 p.m. So moved. Second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Community relations, announcements, and open forum.
The Charlton Police Department is enforcing summer speed enforcement for the month of June with NHTSA federal funds through EOPSS programs. So you guys should be slowing down on our roads. The town hall will be closed on Monday, June 20th, 2022, in observance of Juneteenth. Household hazardous waste and electronics collection is on Saturday, June 25th, 2022, 9 to 1 at the Casella Waste Services Facility on 165 Barefoot Road in Southbridge, Mass. Visit www.townofcharlton.net for more information. Household hazardous waste day vouchers are available to Charlton residents. This is the Board of Health office at 37 Main Street to sign up for a free voucher worth $30. This will pay for half a car at a household hazardous waste day on Saturday, 25th, 2022. You must sign up by June 23rd, 2022 at 5 p.m. for the June 25th household hazardous waste day. Contact the Board of Health at 508-248-2210 with any questions. Coming up, the library, Summer Reading 2022. This year, the theme is Read Beyond the Beaten Path, which encourages outdoor activities, adventure, and skill development. Our program begins on Tuesday, June 21st, and runs through Friday, August 12th. In the spirit of the theme, we will be offering programs, crafts, and resources that encourage adventure and the outdoors. There will be something fun for everyone. To sign up, visit charltonlibrary.org or come by in person. See you at the library.
Thank you. And Bill, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, Mr. Chairperson, with the indulgence of the board, Stefan Sage, the Library Board of Trustees, couldn't make it here tonight, so he asked me to read a letter on his behalf. This has to do with a swastika that was graffitied onto the library walls that I provided copies that Stefan gave to us. I'm going to read this verbatim for those at home. From Stefan Sage, thank you for allowing me to speak remotely through Google. I was planning to come before you at your May 24th meeting, which you needed to cancel. I wish to let you, as a board, and the citizens of Charlton know of some disturbing incidents that have occurred in our town. On May 11th, a swastika was drawn on a side door of the Charlton Public Library. Library personnel were able to promptly remove the symbol of hate and see the attached photo. Several days later, a student leaving Bay Path Regional Vocational High School and driving on Old Mugget Hill Road was heard shouting out the window, "I hate the N-word," over and over. This was reported to me by a friend who lives on the road and witnessed the voice of hate. I spoke with Superintendent Brenner a few days later to let him know about the incident. I also informed him that I would be having a protest at the end of their driveway at a later date. I expressed my opinion and I hope to encourage some discussion at the school. If you look behind you, you will see a sign that says, this is a no place for hate community in 2002. I had a modified reproduction of the sign made, and a few of us held up signs at Bay Path's dismissal on May 26th. On that day, I also learned that an interracial couple live on the road and the shouting may have been directed at them. Although the First Amendment protects such speech, this hate speech cannot and should not be ignored. Through secondhand information, I've heard about an unfortunate incident of anti-Semitic harassment at Charlton Middle School. As I informed the DCRSD school committee on June 8th, I will be holding a protest with the same hope of creating some discussion at the school. The actions of a few have saddened me that these hateful incidents have occurred in our town. I cannot sit by and remain silent. And again, that is from Stefan Sage. And with that, thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Sage, for bringing that forward. As far as community announcements, there's one other thing. We have Old Home Day coming up. We know it's a couple months away, but I'm working on the co-chair of the Soapbox Derby. So it's time to start building your cars. You can get the applications at the library, at the town hall. It takes a month or two to build these cars, so keep that in your thoughts. Moms, dads, grandparents, uncles, aunts, sisters, brothers, start building those cars. And we're moving on to appointments and resignations. Andrew?
Chair,
Oh,
may I speak on the open forum?
yes.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Diane Doherty from Recreation Commissioner. I'm here tonight to talk about the vandalism at the skate park and the parks behind the library. Ongoing graffiti and vandalism. We've been dealing with it. The police have been wonderful in their support, but they have received many incident calls from us. We filed reports. We did catch one individual for restitution, but there's a pending court right now, a pending court case for another individual. It's still ongoing. Today I was over there with my husband. My husband was painting the skate ramps, the N-word, graphic pictures, so forth. I just want to bring this to your attention that we're working diligently to stay ahead of it. It's been an ongoing issue. There's been some vandalism as far as the porta potties go. We had to remove one of them because the individual or individuals that did it destroyed the inside so badly that we could not even clean it. So that's gone. There's one less porta potty down there for the people to use. The porta potty that's down by the playground, the latch has been fixed twice. We have talked to Slim's Berthium when we decided we're not fixing it again, so the door does not close. But we need something down there for the kids at the playground to use when sports aren't in progress. So just to bring it to your attention, the latch on the handicap swing at the playground, that has been fixed twice. We've gotten reports, parents are bringing their handicapped children down there to use the swing and it's not latching. So last week I went and I put some caution tape around it, closed it up. Been working with Miracle Playground, the people that installed the playground. But the third time we've ordered another piece to try to fix it again. Went down there today, the caution tape is gone. So it's just, I'm just bringing it to your attention that we are on top of it. We're working, diligently trying to stay ahead of it. Right now, the skate park ramps look beautiful. Let's hope they stay that way. Police have been informed. They're trying to add some extra patrols to come through, keep an eye on things. I can't say enough about the sports leagues and the police and the highway and CCL landscaping. They're keeping those fields beautiful. They're keeping the equipment, top notch. Everybody works so hard, especially the sports directors and all their volunteers that, for the kids in town. We're trying our best to keep it nice and keep it clean. So I just had to bring that up, put that up to you, especially in lieu of Mr. Sage's remarks, because we're aware of that too. We're trying to work together on that. So thank you.
Can I ask a question for the chair?
No.
Is there any way to put cameras down there or anything?
Well, right now we're working with Jeff. He's supposed to get us some quotes. We're trying to enhance the cameras to extend all the way down to the playground. He's come up with some really good ideas. We're just waiting for those estimates. And of course, when you only meet once a month, got to decide, where the money's going to go. But we're working. We want to purchase the cameras to add to the library's cameras to enhance that. So there's a couple of tree issues, so we may have to be addressing cutting down some trees just so we have clear vision. But, and with summer coming, I'm just hoping that this is the end of it for now. I know it's a skate park and I know, but there's been also things tagged on buildings, cars. So dugouts, we've painted a dugout a couple of times inside. So just to let you all know that we're on top of it. Any complaints, concerns, please let me know. Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you for that. And it's as disturbing as that is, cameras are a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the libraries record periodically.
Their feed feeds into the police department.
The libraries do.
Yeah, the libraries feed, they have cameras on both sides and they feed right into the police department. So the police can check the cameras. If I go down there and I see something, I just call them and they have a timeline. They'll say, okay, when's the last time you checked? We checked, but I actually have to walk around and look, I feel like the
Is there
park
any,
police.
is there any time that it seems like it's happening more than not? Is it late at night or is it?
Probably dusk.
Yeah.
Because it gets really dark down at the
Yeah.
playground down there, really dark. So, yeah, the lighting is bad. The library does have lighting for a while and then they shut off. It shuts off automatically, like, I'm gonna say 9, 10 o'clock-ish. Because I've been there after 10 when we put the skate park in, we were installing after dark and the lights all of a sudden went out. We're sitting in pitch black. It was like 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh man. So, but anyways, thank you. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Let you know.
I don't
Thank
think
you.
we knew the severity of it. Thank you. So moving on, are we done with community relations and announcements, or is there anybody else that think so? We're on to appointments and resignations.
All right. With the appointment of Anthony Gervens to sergeant at your last meeting, there was a need to fill a full-time police officer opening. And upon recommendation of Police Chief Dowd and Human Resource Director Lynn Dyer, the board signed the appointment letter for Jose Altieri effective June 1st, 2022. Mr. Altieri has worked in both detective and patrol and is a transfer from Southbridge. Tonight, the board is asked to make the formal appointment of Jose Altieri as a full-time Charlton police officer.
So moved and welcome to the force. Be safe out there.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Welcome aboard.
Right, the next appointment is for the Lakes and Ponds Committee. At the Conservation Commission meeting held on May 11th, 2022, the commission is recommending the appointment of Phil Sear to the Lakes and Ponds Committee. This appointment would expire on June 30th, 2023. I'd recommend the board make the appointment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries.
Next is for the Old Home Day Committee. Attaches a talent bank form from Lawrence Pierce seeking to be appointed to the Old Home Day Committee. The Old Home Day Committee is recommending the appointment and I concur. The expiration date will be June 30th, 2023.
So moved and welcome to the show.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Larry.
Finally, reappointments for terms expiring June 30th, 2022. Attaches a list of reappointments for terms expiring June 30th, 2022. We have not heard from all the reappointments as of yet and ask the board to approve the list as submitted so that the reappointment letters can be sent out once we hear from all interested parties. If any changes should need to be made, we will notify you at your next meeting.
So moved as submitted.
Is there a second on that? Second. For discussion. Are the only question I had on this is all these, I mean, I know, like you said, that we're gonna go through it. It's find out if they're really able to make the commitment, but all these auxiliary officers, there was a big talk about some of them not being able to do it nowadays. And
I will defer to the chief to answer that, but I believe that any of the auxiliary officers that are being reappointed will meet the minimum training criteria under the Post Act.
okay. So we have a second and if we'll vote, all in favor?
I
Aye.
thought that we discussed that we were gonna look at these more in detail with it was people's insight, sort of calls, their actual performance versus just bulk approving everybody all at once. That we discussed this last year.
Yeah, through a chair.
Yes.
Yeah, so Patsy, my view of that, for lack of a better word, was that it was gonna be up to the individual members of the board to go to Lynn if they had any questions or to go to Andrew, et cetera. With this batch this year, I didn't have any concerns. So, I mean, throughout the year, I've obviously been notified, as we all have, of either complaints and or concerns. But as of today, I can say I don't have any concerns with these. But again, that was my impression of what we were thinking around last year. But again, that may have been a misunderstanding on my part.
And in response to Mr. Borowski and Mr. Black, I went through the list to look to see if I saw anything glaring, like she pointed out. I didn't see anything that concerned me. If I had, I would have brought up that one particular one to ask to discuss that position separate. But I didn't see anything on it that concerned me.
Patsy, is that okay? Okay, so then we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Opposed? One opposed. And moving on to 5. Well, 6:35, actually, Mr. Cloutier. Sorry about that. We're give you the, yeah, sorry about that.
Gee, how could we forget?
Forgettable, I guess. So anyways, Keith Cloutier, Buffalo Road, and I'm here in regards to a follow-up on crumbling foundations. And I actually brought some pictures of my house to kind of let you guys look to kind of refresh your memories on what I was here for. So just a quick recap of what it is, so people if they hadn't heard about it. So the crumbling foundations or crumbling concrete, what happened was it started in Connecticut, and there was a quarry named Becker's Quarry out of Connecticut. And they were mining an aggregate out of there that had an iron-based mineral called pyrite. It's a couple of, or they can call it pyrite. So what happened is that was going inside the concrete, and they were pouring foundations all over Connecticut and southern Massachusetts. And it takes anywhere from 10, 15 years, and it actually degrades the foundation. If you look on pictures there, that was my foundation below the line. That's what was behind my finished walls. It's basically fatal to the house. It's going to eventually collapse and ruin the house. So I had no choice but to replace my foundation, and it cost me almost $170,000. The problem is it's not covered by insurance. In Massachusetts, we have no state programs. There's no federal programs. In Connecticut, they did come up with a program where they give up to $175,000 for them to fix their houses. They're actually going to raise that because the prices are actually skyrocketing. The problem is they can't keep the fund, enough money in the fund to keep it running. That's kind of their problem. So we've kind of done the same thing here. We've submitted a bill in Massachusetts to try and kind of do something similar. We had a hearing, a joint committee hearing with the Natural Resources Committee. We were able to testify and give them all kinds of information on it. It got favorably voted out of committee, and it is now with the Waste and Means Committee. Hearing, it's not dead, but I'm not so sure it's going to move forward this year. So that's where we're at. My cheat notes here. So the Becker's Quarry ran from 85 to 2015, and a lot of the houses are in Connecticut, and there's a few on the border. When my house had it 2 years ago, nobody had even heard about it in this area. And as a matter of fact, even when the house movers came out, they said, geez, Charles, this is the furthest we've ever been out, never been out that far. Now moving forward, we found it in Rutland, Holden, and as far north as Ashburn. So because of that, we said, wait a second, there is no possible way that concrete was traveling from Connecticut to Ashburn and Mass. There's just no way. So the search was on to now find a Massachusetts source. And I was just told the other day, it's been found. And they stopped using it as of 3 weeks ago. So the earliest house that we have that we think came out of that quarry was 1994 up until 2022. So, and that would kind of explain why Connecticut started first, because Connecticut started as early as 1985. So when we had the building booms of the mid-90s and that quarry was being used, there's a lot of houses that were built in this area, Rutland, Holden, all of central Massachusetts. So we have houses that could have been built within town this year that we don't know whether it has that material in it or not. The only way we would know is to know who poured the foundation, that where did they get the aggregate from? And they're not gonna tell you that. They don't wanna say publicly where it is. I actually don't know 100% where it is. I have an idea which one it is. I have an idea what it is, but I'm not gonna.
Warriors?
I know which quarry it is. I believe I know which quarry it is. So we've done a lot of things. We're trying to get the word out. I don't know if you saw it. There was an article on Boston 25. We got them out. We got Channel 5 out. We had 7 trying to do 22 out Springfield. We're trying to get the numbers and the numbers of people, because what's happening is just not enough people complaining for our state to do anything. What's happening too is we have refunds for core testing and for like the engineering. But what's happening is, even though we have that program, we have another side, say like the realtor side, they're telling people don't do it, because now it becomes a disclosure thing. So what's happening is a lot of these houses, if people think they have it, they're flipping. So we had a house in Central Mass that was looked at. They recommended it was core tested. The owner said, I'm not core testing it. The guy that was going to buy it backed out. That house was sold 4 weeks later for $660,000. So that house of that size is probably a $300,000 fix. So somebody just spent $660,000 on a house that's probably worth $250,000. So the other thing is as you're buying houses now, there is no way of you knowing if it's in there. There's just no way. It's going to take 10, 15 years for that to even show up. So something that was, 2-3 years ago, you're going to look at that foundation. It's going to be pristine. It's going to be beautiful. You're going to have it inspected. Nobody can tell, not even a structural engineer will know whether it has it in there. The only true way to know is to core test it and see what's inside it. That's the only way to know. And you may not find out for 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden you're going to see a crack and you go, oh, it's just a crack. Well, a crack may not just be a crack. There's different types of cracks. And the ones that we're looking for is what we call like a map cracking. So, I just wanted to let everybody know where we're at on this, and it's very concerning. I can tell you, I'm fairly confident of at least 2 builders in this area that had built houses in Charlton that probably got material from that quarry. If I was to like speculate, it'd be completely speculation. You're probably on the lower end, 30 to 40 houses in Charlton that are probably
From this new quarry.
that's
a lot of
my
speculation.
my foundation, I'm almost 99% sure that's where it came from. Just based on the information and doing the research. It only makes sense. So they were down here pouring several foundations. And so builders, when they build, and a lot of them, when they do these developments, they don't go and hop around to different places to get their cement. They get it all from the same place, which it generally is in the same time frame. It's all going to be from the same quarry. It's going to be the same aggregate. It's going to be the same problems. So, and I'm always saying that just to kind of give people an idea that I think when the story first came out, they were saying, maybe 1 or 2 houses at Charlton. Well, we've already had 2 houses. 2 houses have already been replaced, mine and another person's. But based with the information I have, and I've seen other houses in town with it, so on, like I said, on the low end, just by averages, you're probably 30 to 40 houses in that area. I think up middle Worcester County is going to get hit really hard. And that's what we're seeing now. I'm seeing several every couple of weeks up in that area. And so I don't know. It's kind of where we're at right now. And we're going to hope for that the legislation goes through, and hopefully people don't get stuck with this. It's a scary situation.
Yeah, I know that Ann Goby was taking a charge on this, but as far as locally, I guess what can we do? So we get a hold of Mr. Fatman and we reach out to our.
Yeah, so I actually brought some pamphlets. We re-updated our information on here, who to contact. We also put the information in here about how now we found a Central Mass source or a Central Mass quarry. what I would suggest would be to, you could get a hold of, Ann, she's doing a great job on this, but I think where we're gonna need to get to is like the Ways and Means Committee now, because that's where the money's coming from. And, you know, the push is gonna be on to get them to vote it out, start setting up a fund and a mechanism. We were hoping that we were gonna get this fund up and running because of the federal funds that came in, all that COVID money. We were hoping for the state of billions of dollars. We were like, oh, this is great. Hopefully we can, you know, tap into some of that money. But who knows, you know,
So do you know where Fatman, Frost, and Durant are on this?
they're all in support of it. So, you know, we have many legislators that have signed on, the senators, that they're all signing on to this. But, you know, when you're trying to get bills through the legislature, it's not as easy as you would think. And like I said, it went favorably with one, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be favorably with the Ways and Means, you know, because they may have so many other things that they're more concerned about. For us, it's tough because of the numbers. People don't want to come out. People don't want to go public. They're scared. Their house is now devalued. There's just so many reasons why people don't want to speak publicly about it, but there's a lot of people out there.
Well, I appreciate you bringing the update to our attention. It's a little more frightening than what I thought the first time you were here.
Yeah, they thought it was just going to be the border towns in Connecticut. Everybody said, oh, it's a Connecticut thing. Well, it's a Massachusetts thing, and it could be as bad, if not worse, than Connecticut. You know, unfortunately.
Any other comments from the board?
We're all sitting here going, I wonder where my concrete came from. I'm engaged right
We can
now.
blood test your foundation anytime you want.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a cheap plug for a key site, www.massracf.com. Check it out.
Yeah, and we actually have a homeowners group that meets on Zoom every couple of weeks. The only people that are allowed in there are homeowners, because so that way people can be, you know, kept confidential with their information, stuff like that.
And these are affected homeowners in this group?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Great.
All righty.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
Keith, thank you for the
Good
update.
luck. Keep us informed, please.
And moving on to the Water and Sewer Commission. Sorry, we just spent all your ARPA money.
No. Thanks for having us this evening. Can you just turn it right over to Pete?
Yeah, good evening. I'd like to start by thanking you for the funding to complete the engineering study we had done at the wastewater treatment plant from the ARPA funds. Following up on that study, we brought Andrew in towards the end of it to kind of get an understanding of where we are at the treatment plant and what's going on. And pretty much the result of the study was, even though we're at 50% of flow, we are pretty much taking in 100% of our design loading. So therefore, we are able to keep up with what we're currently getting. However, we're not going to be in a good position to continue to grow, especially for high strength waste. So I think what really got us to this point to see that was Treehouse wants to continue to grow and expand. And we've tried to let them go slowly. So we started out at 7,500 gallons per day of flow, increased that to 10,000. Then they put in their own pre-treatment system and we let them go up to 15,000. And we started seeing some trouble at our plant. In the meantime, the commission's very much in favor of economic development, especially on Line Route 20. So the Amazon project came forward, and that's 18,000 gallons per day of straight sanitary flow. So we're pretty much comfortable saying yes to that type of flow. But we had to back down Treehouse's flow back down to 10,000 gallons per day because of the strength of their waste. So this study pretty much says what we thought, but it came up with some creative solutions to help us invest some money in the treatment plant so that we have the ability to say yes as new growth comes forward. So Wright Pierce is the engineering company that worked with Veolia. They scoured a bunch of probably 2 or 3 years of data of influent data and effluent treated data. They came through the plant, saw what was working, what wasn't, and they analyzed and came up with solutions. And they came came up with 3 or 4 different solutions for each problem and then narrowed it down to the best solution that works in congruity with the other items that we're trying to tackle with. So again, it was they pretty much presented us a 92-page report from which I sent you the 4-page executive summary. So hopefully you have some time to look at that quickly. But it identified 3 areas. The first is the Headworks building, which is the same building and the same infrastructure that was installed back in 1995, back when we were only treating maybe 80,000 gallons per day. Now we're treating 200,000 gallons a day of much stronger waste. That Headworks building is the initial screening portion of our treatment plant. So the better job that does, the less grit and debris gets through to make issues further up with the rest of the treatment process. So they started there. Then they also looked at the secondary process upgrade to help us be able to treat the additional loading and be able to say yes to more customers. And with this upgrade, they're projecting that we could increase our loading, our design loading by 40%. So in a pounds per day type of way of looking at it, we could currently take 1,000 pounds per day of BOD. We'd be able to increase that to 1,400 pounds per day of BOD, which would allow us to say yes to Treehouse to go up, to continue to increase, and then assess them the privilege fees and let them buy into it. So they would be buying into that portion and that ability to discharge in the future. And then there's a small component for the chemical feed and storage upgrade, which is more kind of an OSHA compliance type of thing and personnel safety type of thing. That's a small component. So the Headworks upgrade that they designed works well with the secondary process upgrade. So if we were to piecemeal it together, we can do the Headworks upgrade first, which is probably priority 1, and then be in a good position to try and look at moving forward with the process upgrade in the near future. So the Headworks upgrade and the chemical feed storage is approximately 2.4 million. I know when I was in front of you last time, I think we talked about maybe using $800,000 or $900,000 of the ARPA funds. If we could still commit to that, I think that would put us in a great place to say thank you. And we can take the remainder amount from our stabilization, sewer stabilization account that we've been building over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and go ahead and fund the rest of this project to get this priority 1 done and completed, and then start to look for additional funding that might be out there to start the secondary process upgrade in the near future. So as we see new requests for new growth, we're not, sitting back and just being a little standoffish. We can say, yes, please, welcome, welcome to Charlton. We're glad to have you. And here we go.
Mr. Chairman? Go through you. Yeah, Pete, I think everything you say makes complete sense. Let's put it that way. I think the problem, like everything else, is we're gonna have to figure out what buckets of money that we're gonna play with to make this happen. So, Andrew, how much of our money do we have left unallocated? Was it around 2.2?
Yeah, so 2.2 is currently unallocated, and just looking at kind of where we stand with the projects that we did fund, we could probably turn back about 300,000 of money that's already been kind of earmarked.
So here's the big question for this board, and actually it's good that Pete brought this forward because this was gonna come to a head sooner than later, regardless of, we have that 2.2, let's even be optimistic and say 2.5 money left there. We know for a fact that the schools had to postpone their conversation with us till tomorrow. More than likely their ask between the new roof as well as everything else is gonna be around, I'm gonna guess, $4.5 million. All right. So if we need to do both of these, and I'm not saying we do, but it sounds like we do, we have to find a way to allocate that money. So would we give Pete and the commission the 800,000 and then allow them the opportunity to use the rest via their retained earnings and other grants, et cetera? Or do we give it all to them? Or do we give it all to the schools, knowing that we still are gonna have to come up with another, let's say, $2 million? I mean, at some point, what I'm getting at is that we don't have the money to do all this. So it goes back to a similar conversation around the senior center, and I will use as an example of, we're gonna make cuts, or we're gonna have a debt exclusion. Because I think it's probably a fair statement that we absolutely have to put a new roof on CMS and along the safety stuff. But from what I'm hearing Pete and Russ say, is that we also are gonna need to do this because we all profess a desire for economic development. In the absence of this, we're gonna have to say, no, you know, this is great, but we really can't help you out that much. So,
It's not worth it.
so it's really more around planning and what buckets and, in a sense, funding mechanisms that we're gonna need to do.
And strategy, because
Absolutely.
the way people vote,
Yeah.
So,
So I think, Peter, what you're asking for is around 800,000-900,000 till they come out of our.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think, we definitely don't want to ask the entire 2 million, because I don't think that's fair for all the other projects and everything else. you have
See, he was a
going on.
former selectman. He knows how to play the game.
So-
You know?
He does.
Fair is fair,
But,
right?
but you mentioned your stabilization as well. How much do you guys have in that?
2.2. I think we've been fortunate to be able to grow that over the last few years. We're gonna have some more privilege fees going into it.
Okay.
But again, I think so long range for our commission, from what I see, is if we can get assistance from ARPA and say we have to fund 1.2 to 1.3 from our stabilization, we spend it. So we spend our stabilization down to 1 million. And we have some new retained earnings. Amazon's gonna get a decent sized privilege fee. That might get us back up to 2.5. But we also have another 5.5 million that we need to go ahead and fund. So I think we're gonna kind of just leapfrog a couple of times. And I think if we can at least get going with priority 1 and get the Headworks building completed, and then get some more revenue coming in, we can go ahead and look at it and look for additional grant funding outside of ARPA. And then go ahead and do some borrowing on our own and fund the next portion of this project, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years. So that, again, we're all in a good position to just welcome whatever new growth might come.
So I think,
Go ahead.
Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we're talking about new growth, the impact isn't just commercial, right?
Correct.
There's gonna be residential needs, there's gonna be additional residential growth. And the bottom line is, no water, you have nothing. You have nothing without water, whether it's commercial or residential. Water is the basis for anything you're gonna wanna do.
The question I have, so as far as this Headworks upgrade, anything that we start to do with the Headworks, it doesn't get replaced when we do the secondary process. This is the step. None of that money in the Headworks would be wasted if we.
Correct. Then that will be a
It's in
standalone
addition
step
to-
1, and then that'll allow us to move on to the second step of doing the process upgrade improvements, which would really allow us to kind of be able to say yes.
So I ballpark between the two, and again, it's order of magnitude estimates at this point. Between this ask and probably what the schools are gonna come in for, assuming they get voted on.
Yeah.
You're talking right there and there, $6.7 million. We have 2 million, maybe 2 to 2.5 in ARPA. So even if we decide to do both of these, we're still on the hook to find $4 million.
there's no way we can do that in operating. I don't think.
Yeah, so it's, so we're talking either all operating, which I agree, Patsy, I think that's
It's-
so draconian, it can't happen. Or you do an all debt exclusion, which I don't know if it'll pass, or strategically, we come up with a way to mix the two. Now, that doesn't include all the other asks that are gonna be coming down the pipe too, so I think this is just one of many that we're gonna have a real, because I don't necessarily consider this discretionary spending. I think other projects, other asks are sometimes discretionary, the want versus need. This, I can see why some might argue, it's like, well, look, it's only a smaller impact to, you know, a certain niche of town. But I would also argue that that certain niche of town is a growing piece that is going to play into our larger growth strategy, so we can't ignore it.
We haven't really jumped into the whole master plan. I know that it's the planning board's game, but it's really the whole town's game, and part of that plan is certainly gonna be growing our water and sewer. We can't, if we don't,
Water brings homes and businesses, which brings tax revenues to the town.
so it's, right.
And a debt exclusion isn't necessarily a bad word if we can do it, if we can pay it off within the levy limit.
I think it might be a good idea
In
to
the
keep it
future,
separate,
right.
not combine them. In other words, should one fail, they both go down. If we keep them separate, and one fails, the other could still pass.
Oh, again, that's even assuming we go that direction, but I 100% agree. Yeah.
Right, and I mean, I think as for the roof, where I believe that will pass, that, I mean, as long as it's promoted, all parents will come out. And this is just smart.
I
I
think
think
they
they
also
both- I
have
think
existing
they-
residences in
yeah,
the
I
town,
think they-
or eventually we need to tie in existing residences who may need to tie into the ward eventually as well, to have things ordered.
The long-term plan is developing Route 20, and if this doesn't happen, there's just no path. It just, so I agree. So it's just about the strategy of making it happen. It's the best.
Pete, what do you need to know about?
No, I'm just- Honestly, it would be nice for me to move forward with a level of comfort in talking with Andrew. These are hopefully conservative engineering numbers. So the next step, again, in discussion with Andrew with the engineering company, for me, would be to maybe ask for funding to actually design the Headworks building and the chemical feed storage and put that out to bid to come back to you with real numbers. My concern with all of the asks on the table that, sure, if we ask for $150,000 to do the engineering study, that by the time that's done and we, everything could fall in place where we're ready to do everything at fall town meeting.
Right.
Is the rest of the ARPA funds are gone. So we understand where you are. Plotting slowly, I guess we're comfortable with, and I think if, as long as you guys identify this as a priority, and then again, they can identify our ask as reasonable, we can move forward and just take the small steps, and I'll get a price from the engineering company to go ahead and do the design of the Headworks building and the chemical feed storage. So that way there, we can fund that from, next step, fund that from the ARPA funds, and then put that out to bid. And then come back to you with real numbers to hopefully present at fall town meeting, and then talk about funding whatever the split might be between whatever's left in ARPA and what we come up with for stabilization. And maybe whatever, even else, if I can find something else in the meantime for additional funding as well, so.
I mean, just speaking for me, I'm not opposed to this, and because I think it's a reasonable ask. I think it's just a matter of logistically. I'd like to have a further discussions with the schools to figure out exactly what they're asking and that timeline and how all that plays out. Because one way or another, I mean, I think we're gonna use up that 2.5 of like ARPA. I mean, granted, yes, they're distinct projects, but that 2.5 is going somewhere. It's just a matter of really how we cut it.
Right, so it was really nice when it first came up, which is water and sewer and broadband, right?
Right.
Because you have nowhere else to spend it.
Exactly.
Since they changed that, it's
Yeah.
kind of a different world, so.
Yeah.
Again, we appreciate you understanding the priority of it, and I think if we can take that next step to work with the engineering company and fund the actual design, so we can go ahead and put it out to bid and get some real numbers, and hopefully see that these are, we're cautiously optimistic and maybe a little bit high.
Yeah.
And we can go ahead and come forward towards, as we get closer to fall town meeting and all the capital stuff is coming forward, to have a true ask with real numbers. And again, we'll come up with different funding mechanisms, of which hopefully there's still some ARPA funds to apply.
I'm sorry.
Do anybody want to make a motion that we?
So moved.
I have a second.
I would make a motion.
Yeah, I'll second for discussion. I got one more question.
What was the motion?
My motion would be that we prioritize the water sewer need, because I think that goes to the top of the list as a critical need. And I would say we give the 800,000 or 900,000. I'll make it $900,000 market line. And then readjust the remaining priorities on the upper list. Schools, everything else doesn't make a difference. ARPA's not going to pay for everything for either one of them.
Yeah.
This one, I think, would be to start sooner. It's the top of my list.
I'll throw my second for discussion, but I have a question for Pete.
Yep, go ahead.
How do we answer the question from voters? Why don't you guys just use your retained earnings to start with the, to do the study?
Because it's not enough to fully fund, it's not enough to even probably give us a quarter of the total project cost.
Project cost, yes, but I'm talking just
The 8
like,
to 9.
Because if we,
Just the study for now.
if we spend our retained earnings down to zero, and then there's something else that happens in the distribution system, and we don't have the funds there to do that, it puts us in a terrible spot.
I thought the study was only around 150 grand.
Oh, for us to fund, Just the engineering for
Yeah.
our stabilization. Because we would have to wait to town meeting to start that, because we don't have that appropriated at this time.
All right,
The
that's
ARPA funds are currently there and available, I believe.
What,
And if I,
I'm sorry, Russell.
if I might, you know, our board, or since joining the board, this board has always been very frugal and doesn't ever want to ask for money that's totally not needed, nor does it want to spend the taxpayers' money on a system that doesn't affect them. So we try and balance the systems within themselves always. So users are paying for what they use. People in the town are not paying for what they don't use. So those who are not on the sewer line, not paying for it. Situations like this, however, where we're trying to draft money for future infrastructure is key to grow this town. Because if we don't start today, by the time that new company comes here and asks for the demand, we don't have it at the plant. We have to say no. Everyone's like, why can't we have business in Charlton? Well, here's another reason why.
And if I heard you correctly, you've already had to roll one customer back because of usage.
Exactly. And we pride ourselves on trying to make it work, which we did with Treehouse for a year and a half. And it really fell on them, not so much us, not following the program that was laid out in order to make that work, which they're still trying to do. We never want to say no to a resident, never mind a new business.
Yeah.
So this is future planning that's not so far away. This is something that the town is really needed to do 10 years ago, not 10 months from now. And that's why we're before you.
Yeah, I think it's now with Amazon and Treehouse and some other people's eyes are opening up to the benefits of just business growth, you know, non-residential homeowners. I think it's a good idea.
Can we just fund the 150
That's where I was gonna,
and
Go.
start small versus, you know, giving away almost, but spending a million without.
I think with Pat's on this, that I would feel a lot more comfortable with starting with 200K, have you do the study. And I'm not saying no to the rest of it, but that this at least allows you guys to go forth and conquer, while we have the opportunity to strategize more, to say, all right, we've already started this, so we do have investment in it, but how are we gonna find a way to allocate the remaining ARPA funds and or other items that we may need? So if we drop this down to like 200 for now, assuming that's enough, and if it's not, you guys come back to us.
Yeah, understood.
I feel a lot more comfortable with that, as opposed to just coming out the gate at 8 or 9, but that's up to you.
So my question then to Pete and Russ would be, if we adjusted to knowing that you have the support of this board to see this through, would that give you the confidence you need to get this ball rolling, knowing that we know now what you need before we even have other ARPA money conversations with anybody else?
Yes, no, I'm comfortable with that. Again, it's just more readdressing and reintroducing the priorities that we have. And just making sure that, again, those ARPA funds don't just go sideways somewhere else. So I think it's a good, I'm comfortable with that, definitely.
Anything's a big help and a step in the right direction.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move to amend my motion to 200,000 with a note, being very clear towards her, well, because this is everything. You increase our capability to bring in new residents, new businesses, and by the way, support existing residents. And the new residents and businesses bring in additional tax revenue, which means in the future, we have less to have to ask taxpayers for. So, and to me, water is probably the most critical, water and sewer is probably one of our most critical needs. So I would move to amend it to 200,000 with a commitment to them that we are going to support them on this to the end.
Second, with the understanding, I'll do my best I can. That's appropriate.
You always find a way.
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, it's unanimous.
Thanks, Pete.
Great, thank you.
And guys, thank you for
Thanks for
keeping
hearing
this
us.
in front of us, because that ARPA money could evaporate pretty quick.
Especially if we didn't know tonight about the need.
That's kind of,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. Yes,
That's good.
Appreciate it all.
there this.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Do you want to go on to the Santos property real quick? Is that on there?
Yeah.
So we've been fortunate, again, to receive grant funding from the state for the water master plan over the last, I think, 4 or 5 fiscal years. We've actually, FY 22 is a mess because of COVID, but we've gotten probably $200,000 a year over 4 fiscal years each year. So a total of probably $800,000 to try and find an in-town water source so we can create our own water system. That allowed us to do the exploration down at Buffinville, where we found the portion of the property that we purchased, and we have that sitting there. However, the cost to get it to our current infrastructure might be a little bit more expensive than what we want to do. Last year, Mr. Santos from the Nature's Classroom reached out. He's got 450, 500 acres that goes from Harrington Road all the way down to Denfield Road, a nice big piece. Asked us if we want to go ahead and look there for a possible water source. He has a couple of, he has 1 or 2 wells there that are 100 gallons per minute. So we got the approval from the state under the grant funding to do some research there, do some geological analysis and actually drill some test wells. We drilled 2 test wells. One was not so great and one was just good enough not to say no to. So we're still working with that right now. We're coming on the end of FY 22 and FY 22's grant funding. So we're gonna, again, examine the well that's there, do a long-term pump test this week, see what that well will yield. And then we also have FY 23 funding to continue exploring in that area to see if we can't find another well. And what's nice about that area is it's in close proximity to Route 169 where our infrastructure is. So we could go ahead and just, if it works out, if we find a couple of good wells with some other opportunities in town, we could possibly look at finally getting into our own water system. I've also been working with Andrew as far as the overlooks well, their public water supply well. They were 45 to 50,000 gallons per day, which isn't a lot, but if you add that to 250 or 300,000 gallons per day, it gets us to that level of comfort where we can go ahead and really start to move forward. So part of FY 23's funding from the state will be to determine what portion of property we would have to work with the overlook to kind of purchase from them to go ahead and do that. So it's kind of step, again, everything is small steps. Unfortunately, everything takes time, but it is moving forward.
Good.
Excellent.
Job, Pete.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Thank you, guys. Scheduled appointments, I guess, for
Great business.
yeah, we guess maybe the January, new business 1 and 2, maybe 3.
Started it, must be done.
Or the police station water line bid award. Sounds like a pretty easy one.
All right, so bids were opened on May 11th, 2022 at 2:00 PM at the Town Hall for the Charlton Police Department Water Service Connection Project and reviewed by McClure Engineering. There were 3 bids received. McClure Engineering has recommended the board award the bid to Morse Engineering and Construction Industries LLC on the basis of the total bid as submitted in words and numbers as $69,980.00. I would concur with their assessment.
A bit cheaper than I anticipated. So someone,
Second,
all in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
And the next one is for the police department's drone application. The Charlton Police Department is requesting the board support and approval for the attached drone application. Under previous management, a drone was purchased for the police department and the Central Mass Law Enforcement Council drone group. In order to fly a drone, we must be in compliance with FAA. The FAA requires this paperwork, which would allow us to utilize the drone for search and rescue, as well as law enforcement purposes, particularly establishing a bird's eye view aids in better deployment of officers, establishing perimeters, and enhancing nighttime locations with infrared capabilities. We have forwarded the application to Attorney Cosgrove for review. He had questions regarding insurance, and the town is fully insured and authorized to operate throughout all areas of Sunlight. I'd recommend the board approve the application request.
Along with Dozier, this is a nice move for us, so I'll make a motion.
Second the motion.
The chair, there's no cost here.
There,
There was, it was.
the drawing had already been.
So-
But there's no cost for the
So there's
application.
no, the application's free.
Right, yes.
I think Cosgrove's, I read it, it was Cosgrove's only concern was its ability to fly in other towns from a liability standpoint. And that's. seems to be-
Yeah, right,
that
that's
seems
covered
to be
under
minor.
satellite.
Yeah. And that's covered under satellite, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Unanimous.
Still a little bit of time.
Yeah, we'll say, do you want to wrap?
Sure.
We can do, yeah. Let's go to the highway department.
All right, so the highway department received a $422,684 in funding apportionment from the Winter Recovery Assistance Program for fiscal year 2023. As part of that program, they're planning to rubber chip and seal the following roads pending no issues: Dodge Road, Brackett Hill Road, Hanson Road, and Murphy Lane. The balance will be used toward the remaining balance will be used toward the reconstruction of number 6 Schoolhouse Road and Bond Road. Should be noted that the road materials bids that were received, that there was a $16 per ton increase in bituminous concrete from the previous year. And this product will increase, the increase in product costs will bring the average paving job up by $40,000, which is probably going to impact our strategy moving forward with Chapter 90 funding.
Do we need a motion on that?
No motion needed, just for the board's warrants.
And just so, Steve, through you, just so everyone at home is aware, this is in addition to our chapter 90 funds. So it's above and beyond what we normally get from the state. So that's a nice little one for us.
Okay, no motion needed.
Highway materials.
All right, and on May 23rd, 2022, bids were received and opened for 2022 highway materials bid. After review of the bids, DPW Director Jerry Foska is recommending the following bids be awarded. For bituminous concrete type 1 in place, $78 per ton to mass broken stone. Last year's bid was $62.29 per ton. For full depth reclamation or full depth pavement reclamation with the application of 1 gallon of liquid calcium chloride per square yard, with all grading including a cost of $2.39 per square yard to Murray Paving and Reclamation Inc. Get an increase from the amount of $2.189 per square yard last year. And then finally, item 3, stone seal, double stone seal, and 10% asphalt rubber surface treatment. Stone seal $3.15 per square yard, double stone seal at $5.40 per square yard, and asphalt rubber at $4.15 per square yard. Comparatively, those were $2.55, $4.60, and $3.60 per square yard respectively last year. All of these were the low bids for each item, and I'd recommend the board approve as requested.
Mr. Chairman, unless the board objects, I would motion to approve all these in their totality.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Squeeze in the Bandshell real quick committee. We got maybe 2.
It is now 7:30. Do we want to,
1 second. I will bring-
do we have, is Luke here or is?
Yes, 1 second.
I will. It's a five, right? Yes, I will.
Yes, he's covered. Just preface that. So in November 2021, the town was awarded a community compact grant to perform a conceptual planning analysis of the Route 20 corridor in the Charlton City area to envision future development and growth in the underutilized parcels stemming from the Amazon Distribution Center development. Town planner Randy Benson and I have worked with VHB to guide a development analysis and community needs that could be built in the Route 20 corridor in this area. The final product is intended to be a marketing tool for attracting future development in the Route 20 area. introduce you to Luke Mitchell from VHB, who will be here to present the finding or the final product of this conceptual analysis. So, Luke, it's all you.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Can you see me? Can you hear me? And can you see my slides?
Looking good.
Excellent. Okay, so as Andrew mentioned, we kicked this project off over the winter and spent a few months basically examining, investigating the corridor, looking at existing conditions, and trying to figure out ways that we could, provide recommendations on how to leverage the arrival of the new Amazon facility. So these slides that I have here are the culmination of that research. The contents, we'll start with a little bit of project background, what our goals and objectives were when we got started. Second, the existing conditions. Of course, that's important to understand what's on the ground and how it, what opportunities and challenges those existing conditions pose for future development, both private development, but also development of the roadway corridor into something beyond what it is now. Third, we developed some concepts on specific parcels, which I can show you those, and then lastly, we touched upon what next steps might be in order to achieve some of the things that we lay out in the slide. So, project background. Here's a map that shows, if you can see my mouse, the proposed Amazon facility. Is it 2 million square feet? I mean, this is a gigantic facility that you guys that is coming to town. And with that, with all of that square feet, of course, comes so many employees. And that was really, I think, the tenor of the conversation when we first sat down with Andrew and Randy was, there's going to be a lot more people working here than there were previously. Where are they going to get breakfast? Where are they going to get lunch? If they need to pick up some, pharmacy type things, where are they going to go? What if they're looking to take a nice walk or go for a bike ride? What opportunities are there out there for them? So as you can see on the map, and I'm hoping that the light green parcel outlines are showing up on your screens. I'm not sure what screen you're seeing this on, but we identified, or really Andrew and Randy identified for us, I think it was 11 parcels specifically that we were asked to take a closer look at. There's existing development on some of these, some of which is vacant, some of which is active. But really the question was, looking to the future, what's the potential for these parcels relative to the underlying land use regulatory framework of each parcel, as well as its location along the corridor. So really the goals and objectives that we were looking to support were: one, facilitate the development of ancillary businesses to support the new Amazon facility, as I mentioned just now. Two, help create a pedestrian-friendly corridor. Create might be a loaded word. This is a state road, so the question is, what can be achieved? And we wanted to set aside a lot of the questions of who owns what and who controls what for this exercise, and that can be focused more on later on in the implementation strategy. We wanted to think, what can be achieved in terms of making it more pedestrian and bicycle friendly. Three, promote economic development throughout the corridor, and find places, moments along the road that are ideal for the development of additional restaurants, light retail, and supportive housing. And by supportive, we simply mean housing that can support the introduction of the new Amazon facilities. So that could mean any number of types of housing. But what we really wanted to focus on was sort of medium density housing. I'm not talking skyscrapers here, but something a little more than single family residences, something to increase the population along the corridor that could make use of the retail. Also provide units that the future workers in the facility could potentially live in. And then the second was about the supermarket chain. We understand in order to go grocery shopping. Residents in this area need to leave town. Is there any opportunity to introduce something like that a little more local, which would be good for current residences and supportive of your tax base as well? So some key site challenges and opportunities that we picked up on. First is environmental restrictions. You find those on any site anywhere, but the ones that we found were particularly relevant here: buffers around wetlands, rivers, streams, wellheads, floodplains, and how to manage stormwater. Second is topography. This is not a flat corridor. There's a lot of topography going along, a lot of ups and downs. So that poses both challenges in terms of site grading and accessibility. It also poses opportunities in terms of creating view sheds for people that are positioned along the corridor. Third, vehicle and pedestrian access. There's some bottlenecks along Route 20 within this stretch of Route 20 that we looked at as well. So opportunities, existing utilities, you have existing water and sewer lines running throughout the study area, which is good. Not every area does, so to have that as a plus for attracting investment and growth opportunities. As well as roadway infrastructure. Amazon, of course, intending to install a new automated traffic light system along the corridor to address bottlenecks. How can you best leverage that? So here is the map showing the parcels. I won't go through the whole list, but we have this. I'll be done in a minute. 11 parcels here of varying size, some smaller, some a bit larger, but really a mix of land uses that you could find out there. Largest parcel being shown here, if you can see my cursor, that's G, parcel G. Parcel F, which is 3.22 acres. That's the former box factory building currently vacant, which in conjunction with the parcels adjacent to it, really poses a great development opportunity. So I'll run quickly through these. This is elevation and hydrology here. So you can see your high points and low points. Obviously the proposed Amazon facility on top of the hill. And really the majority of the stretch of corridor that we looked at running through the lowlands with some small peaks in between. So as you can see in dark blue are the streams, which crisscross Route 20 in a couple of places. In green, in sort of chartreuse here, you can see the wetlands, which of course pose limitations to some degree on some of these parcels. You have a buffer typically around the wetlands of 100 feet. That's controlled by the Conservation Commission. So it's a consideration. Doesn't mean you can't do anything there, it's just a consideration for what needs to be done. Here are floodplains. Again, this also pops up in a few of the parcels as well. Again, doesn't mean that things can't be built there. It's just a question of permitting and potentially some construction cost issues. There's some wellheads nearby, no major impact here, and sites of contamination. This is worth noting that there are, the state maintains a database of sites of contamination. If you have this on a parcel that you're going to develop, you need to remediate it before you develop. So that just to note that there's some of that going on in the former box factory. Here's a map showing utilities. You have sewer lines, water mains, sort of positioned throughout these parcels. We didn't see that as a major limiting factor. But this was a limited study. We didn't look at the capacity of those lines or the plants in town. So site 1 is all the way over to the west. This is closest to the proposed Amazon facility, and it's really 2 parcels, both on either side of Route 20. So what we wanted to concentrate on here was retail. And restaurant. In other words, let's try to find ways to put something here that can be amenity for the workers in the Amazon facility to come down and get lunch or dinner. I mean, whatever. How many shifts this is probably 24-hour shifts. So lunch, dinner, breakfast. Cafes, breweries, whatever. We weren't specific in our concept planning, but we wanted to figure out how much could fit conceptually relative to the site constraints, etc. Here is what you have now existing. On the left, there's some industrial buildings with some activity in them, and on the right is a multifamily housing facility. So looking forward in terms of highest and best use of these sites, on the south side of the road, that's on plan left here, you can see a couple of mixed-use residential, retail, restaurant buildings. And again, this is medium density, call it 3 stories. That's residential in your top 2 stories with retail and restaurant on the ground floor. Now, at first, we wanted to think about how can you bring this straight up to the street to create something that's pedestrian friendly and human scale and something that invites people into it. But of course, when you're out there, you realize, this isn't Main Street anywhere USA. This is Route 20. There's 4 lanes of traffic and people are driving by pretty quickly. So in order to maintain the safety and the comfort level of people in the property, we wanted to create a setback. So in this concept plan, you can see what we call a pedestrian plaza running all the way east-west at the top of the parcel, basically buffering Route 20 from this development so that you can have something of a pedestrian open space recreational amenity here with outdoor seating for the cafes, some storefronts on the retail, etc. And by the way, as you can see up at the top of the image, we played around with, and again, this is conceptual, of course, as all these drawings are. We wanted to think about how can you take this pedestrian plaza and maybe tie it into the Amazon property. There's a winding switchback road where people will drive into the Amazon facility. Maybe we can find a way to put a trail that leads directly down here to invite people into Charlton, rather than just have a parking lot and their place of employment. Try to gesturally draw people down into Route 20. So as you can see, this is drawn to scale. So really let's look back at the numbers here. I'll have to remind myself. We found that you could fit about 44 units of housing across the 2 properties with parking to support it, as well as 17,000 feet of retail and restaurant space and parking to support that at your typical zoning required parking. So that's not an insignificant amount of development. When you think about 17,000 square feet of retail and restaurant, you can fit a cafe or brewery in 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. So that could mean anything. It could mean a small pharmacy, a retail shop, as well as a restaurant. You could really fit a significant amount of program onto that parcel. And then across the street, what we saw, by the way, across the street over here on the right side of the plan, which is the north side of Route 20, really there's a lot of environmental constraints on that property, but what we found is you could squeeze a multifamily residential onto the property. So I'll try to speed this along. I know there's a lot on the agenda. So on site 2, we're moving eastward. There's 2 parcels here. As we got started, we learned that there's already a plan for what you can see now on the left side of this photograph, which is going to be turned into a gas station. There's somebody who owns it and they already have a plan. So as you can see here in our concept plan, we basically mirrored what's already been planned for the gas station on the left. And for the property on the right, again, we explored concept for mixed retail, which could be programmatically and in terms of parking tied into the gas station with mixed retail storefront windows. And as you'll see here, and you'll see it again in the other ones, we really became fond of this concept of the buffered space between the building and Route 20 to have something pedestrian friendly that's both safe and comfortable for the users of the property. So site 3 was parcels E, F, and G. This is basically the location of the former box factory, which is located next to a creek, open air water. And we see this as a tremendous opportunity site. There's a lot of interesting topography going on, a lot of interesting view sheds. The fact that the river is there means it can be a potential for an open space amenity. It's located in a place that's very visible near the intersection with South Bridge Road. So it's accessible, great views, and lots of, you have, with everything combined, you're looking at 4 or 5 acres of land. Here's a photo of that factory, which of course is vacant. Of course, so yeah, that became one of the challenges for this parcel, which is, look, it's going to be expensive to demolish this structure and rehabilitate the soils, which, as I mentioned, have some points of contamination. So what we came up with was, let's put a grocery store over here, because that's going to be, grocery store is typically pretty high lease value for a grocery store. So the question became, what size of a grocery store can you really fit on 3.22 acres? Well, we looked at a few examples of grocery stores that we're familiar with. You're not going to be able to accommodate the giant supercenter Whole Foods and the parking that would need to go along with it. But if you think about a Trader Joe's, a sort of medium-sized grocery store, you can fit that comfortably on site with the amount of parking that you would need to service that store. So we went ahead and drew that up in the concept plan. And then, what basically, as you can see, I hope that you can see these faded white lines. That's the existing contours of the site. You have the high point over here on the eastern end to the west. You're dropping down by about 30 feet by the time you get down to the bottom of the hill. So some serious grade change. So we didn't see that as necessarily preventing anything from being built here. In fact, it could lead to some more interesting views. Yeah, you could put this grocery store up on a retaining wall, for instance, and throw a loading area down in a subterranean level, and you could have a loading area down the back. Then you end up with a retaining wall facing Route 20. Could be a great location for a mural, branding of Charlton, things like that. Down here on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see a very small parcel, which is again another. I think it was the fire department, if I'm not wrong, from a long time ago, the fire station. So we spoke about the idea of putting a bus stop there with Andrew and Randy, and it made a whole lot of sense to us. In terms of, if we're gonna be building pedestrian infrastructure here, how can we think about other sort of multimodal forms of transportation, including existing bus lines that run along Route 20? So if you can put super visible, well advertised bus stop here, it could be a pocket park as well, tying into that river and back for some open space programming. And then lastly, up top on the top of the hill, you could squeeze a fair amount of mixed office and retail onto the parcel that exists there. There is some limiting topography on the back of that parcel where you wouldn't be able to build much of anything without some serious geoengineering, but you could at the very top fit a fair square footage of mixed office and retail. And then lastly is Site 4. This is all the way over to the east of our stretch of Route 20. And really for this, these are the existing conditions there now. Some smaller businesses, mixed residential retail. So again, playing with pedestrian programming and finding a way, because this is really getting close to your downtown. Right across the street, you have the Ted's Package Store and a few existing small businesses. So the idea here was really focus on retail to really build upon what you already have and make this more of a pedestrian friendly destination. So retail on the left, on the right hand side, some residential and retail mixed use development there. So to wrap things up, we have a slide here which is potential for next steps, because again, there's all sorts of stakeholders at stake in the pieces of land we were just talking about. There's the state, there's the town, there's the private property owners. We don't want to be so presumptuous as to figure that everybody's going to be on the same page. So there's going to be a lot to get from A to B in terms of really making this stretch of Route 20 corridor something transformative for the community of Charlton. So first would most likely be some form of zoning change, which would most likely take the shape of an overlay. So, you know, that process, you're probably familiar with that type of process. It's all about, well, you got to take a really close look at your existing zoning. Well, I said, perhaps before that is coming to a consensus on the vision for Route 20. But then once you have that, review existing zoning and figure out what the gaps are between what's currently allowed and what you want to see happen. And then from there, work with a land use attorney and an advisor, a city planning consultant or advisor to come up with a zoning overlay ordinance that will be good for the community because it can allow for a transformative development. And in many cases, arguably would be good for the owners of these properties because it would materially transform what the highest and best use of their property is. Okay, so second, tax increment financing district. You know, this is a TIF district. There's all manner of examples of TIF districts throughout the country, really. But in Massachusetts, for example, we just put together a TIF district in Dudley that straddles the French River between Dudley and Webster. It's 60 properties. It enables the towns to form agreements with the owners of each of the properties, each of the subject properties, to either perform value capture on the value of the taxes from the improved value of their properties, or grant some form of tax relief to basically provide a carrot to bring in more investment into areas that need it most. So could be a potential idea to explore here. Third is marketing opportunities. You know, if the town, again, if the community can come to some form of consensus around what the vision for this corridor is, it start to become strategic around how exactly you're going to market those opportunities to the development community who can really bring their ball to play and make the vision happen. So sorry, I hope I didn't go on too long, but that was what we came up with, and I hope it's helpful. And if you guys have any questions, then look forward to discussing those.
Steve, are you?
Don't go.
So Luke, nice job in this, and nice job to Andrew and Randy as well. Just a quick statement more than anything before rumors fester into facts. Really for those at home, there's no Trader Joe's isn't coming right now. That's literally that's a type of environment or company that could be there. No one's talking about eminent domain. No one's coming to take your properties. I mean, town meeting has to approve all of this. And this is really more for illustrative purposes only to show when we talk around water sewer, when we talk around economic development, when we talk around Route 20 development, this is what it could be, assuming the landowners and the town wants it to be. So this is just a step of us looking forward to say, change is coming. Let's try to transform it in the best way we can for the town as a whole. So, you know, this isn't putting, you know, the cart before the horse. This is still, you know, the horse is way out in front. We're just at this point trying to say, here's what we might look like one day if the town wants it to look like it. So, but Luke, like I said, very nice job on this.
Yeah, Luke, thank you. That was very good. That was actually light. But like Bill said, yeah, the horse is quite a ways down the road.
Yeah.
There's a multitude of steps we have to go through before that. But
And Patsy, just like you said before around the overall master plan, you know, I would assume this will, you know, dovetail it directly to that.
Right,
also.
what's everybody's vision of, you know, what are we gonna look like in 20 years? And
Absolutely.
we have to
Yep.
step in that direction. We have to, you know, take the baby steps to get where we want to get.
You know, nice job there.
Thank you.
okay, Luke, thank you very much.
See you, Luke. Nice job.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to go on to the Bandshell Committee, I believe.
So at the board's May 10th, 2022 meeting, we met with the Recreation Commission Activities Council regarding a bandshell at 4 Dresser Hill Road. It was recommended to form a committee to review and come up with a design that would fit the town's rural character and be practical and bring it back to the board. The recommended members would be a member of the Recreation Commission, a member of the Activities Council, a member of the Board of Selectmen, and a member from the community, or members from the community recommended too. Sherry Zenka, who is on the Recreation Commission, has stated that she will be the member for this committee. I'd recommend the board form the committee as indicated.
Unless the board or Don has questions, I would motion.
I second the motion.
Any discussion?
Basha's not here, so I would highly recommend that she be the Board of Select Person
I
member.
think we should do a backup
But
for
as a
that.
reference.
Her and I had that discussion that.
I was just trying to be funny, so, but,
No,
oh, that
no,
works out even better.
definitely, she definitely need, no, this is her baby, let her,
Good for me.
but we should, I'll be her backup on this, if that makes sense. That way, because we both have young kids.
I will include all of that in my motion.
Do I hear a second on that?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So move. You're good.
So Andrew, I'm assuming we'll just advertise as always.
Yep.
So if you're interested, send a note to Mary and Andrew.
And next is to discuss the Senior Center Public Safety Facility Development Strategy.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not gonna read this whole thing.
No, yeah.
But I basically put together kind of a à la carte options here as to every kind of direction that we could head, recognizing, the needs that were brought up previously with the senior center and our continual needs to develop some level of public safety development. So just kind of ran through the gamut of everything from starting immediately with the plans that have already been designed and developed through for the public safety building to construction, to a fire station only, to a smaller public safety building with substation, timed out at different points, and just try to give some preliminary kind of cost estimates as to where that would be if that was the strategy on the public safety facility. I passed this out earlier, but I reached out to the architect that we had worked with on the previous public safety building to kind of figure out what has the market done since the last time that we went out to bid, and what would it be if we just took those plans and threw them back out on the table and said, same plan, same site, same everything. What would the cost be in today's market conceptually? And then what if we took those plans, made some tweaks to it relative to fascia design, some small building layouts, maybe some design considerations, and then with the additional time it would take to redraft everything and development costs, what would that cost generally be? And then what if we blew up the entire plan? We started from scratch. We considered all the time it would take to get to that point and to acquire a site for that development. What could that cost potentially look at like? So, essentially at this point, the fastest development plan would look at about a 10% increase in the overall cost from where we were just 2 years ago, based off inflation. They're projecting that if essentially every year that you wait in the current market, you're looking at about a 14% increase based off of the current rate of inflation. So, they have a contingency of 7% at the midpoint of construction on just the easiest one. So the rebid cost, they have it basically 14% plus every cost. And then to get to that new development point, to wait further out, they're projecting at like 21% inflation. So, essentially going from a $25.4 million building is now a $32 million building, waiting and doing some cost or doing a little bit modification would basically make it a $34 million building. And starting from scratch with the same cost per square foot as currently done makes it about $40 million building. So those are just kind of some exercises we went through just to say what's our starting point, if the discussions around pure numbers, what's kind of some considerations to follow.
But these are all online under the Board of Selectmen's page, so it's not like we're hiring you, like literally you can go and see every single one of these details. Just look under, I think it's agenda packets.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll add this one in too, because that actually just came in late today. As far as the development, it's kind of, that's kind of taking care of our public safety facilities is number one. And then kind of right behind that, outside the school, which has their own track and plan as far as development of the roofs and the MSBA project, is the senior center, community center development. So any new development around that, I think, is best targeted for that for Dresser Hill area, considering you're looking at development of a bench, as a bandshell being behind it, and you can combine basically the senior center activities that are going on down below with the arts and activities center and everything else that's there with Chipin, and kind of address all that need all at the same time. And then just looking at what other similar type facilities right now, essentially, the ballpark ranges from, $6 million to $10 million, depending on, how detailed you get in construction, how big the facility is, what, if you wanted to make it look like the Taj Mahal or a shed out back. But essentially the strategy outlined and recommended was that, essentially take the most aggressive step forward to address the public safety facility first. And then at the same time, you can establish a separate committee to take a more logistic approach as far as what to do with the community center and senior center, and essentially have those plans ready to go, that once the public safety facility is taken care of, then you reassess where we are monetarily, operationally, and then make a plan, and then decide when to pull the trigger on that. It's kind of my Reader's Digest version of everything here.
Very good, Andrew. Nice job on this too. And as Bill said, this is available on the website. Anybody can look at all these recommendations. But the next steps, as far as the public safety building, are you here to talk to us about this?
I'm just here to comment on the work that Andrew.
Oh, by all means.
Good evening, all. Thank you. So in having discussions with Andrew moving forward with the project, there's some things in here, and by the way, I applaud Pete and Russ for the job they did. You're not going to go anywhere without an infrastructure in this town. So I think that's got to be the focus moving forward, and public safety is part of that infrastructure. We all know the elephant in the room, and my fear is that if you go full bore for the public safety building, you end up with what you already had 2 years ago. And you're just pushing the can down the road again. I brought up the idea, and I brought it up even as we were speaking for that plan moving forward, is the idea of a substation. You have 44 square miles within this town. You have to have a substation in this town. There's no way around it. In order to improve home insurance rates, in order to improve our response times to incidents, you're going to have 2 facilities in this town at a minimum to meet those needs, with all the growth that you're projecting with new residential neighborhoods and obviously the commercial Route 20 structure. Everybody's after the same piece of pie, and I don't think putting a 28, 30, $40 million building out there is going to make it past the showroom floor. It's just going to fall flat on its face.
Well, I appreciate that. I think there's certainly some room for discussion over that.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Chief, I'm kind of with you on this to a point, if you will. The reason I say that is we know what we currently have, meaning for plans. We know it's going to cost, roughly 32 million right now if we were to build it. What I'd recommend to the board, and obviously would like to hear your thoughts, is kind of going on the path that you're thinking is, almost Andrew saying, hey, think outside the box and start over. And that may mean one substation, maybe 2, maybe 3. I mean, I don't know, but come up with something that is remarkably different than what we currently have under our plan for the combined PSB. So I would consider that, first and foremost, fire station, absolutely, like, or I should say the fire department, to me, it has to become number one. Police station right behind it, either having renovations done to it, or potentially even they have a new building as well. But what I'd probably recommend, and again, I'd like to hear chief's thoughts of, to this committee, is let's form another group and challenge them to come up with different ideas that we can then juxtapose with the plan that we already own. And get all of us in a group together and say, all right, which one is most likely to pass and that is most palatable? Because we don't want to pass something that's not going to work either. I mean, that's another one of my concerns, chief, of, going to spend $7-10 million and then it doesn't give you guys what you need. Because then we look at it and go, come on, you got to
And again, that it has to have an enormous amount of education on the back end of it to the public, in that the substation approach it alleviates some of your problems, some of your existing problems here and now. You've got a station 2 I'm asking for $600,000 come October to do complete renovations on that thing.
Yeah, I mean, let's be candid though, too. That thing should just be torn down.
Yeah.
Like, really, I mean, to everyone at home, let's be completely candid on this one. That is a disaster area, and it's embarrassing that we have the team in there.
And that substation approach kind of alleviates that problem. It alleviates the storage problem we have with apparatus and trailers. We have trailers that are outside exposed to the elements that are failing because of the elements. They leak and they have to be rebuilt or repaired. So I think it's an approach that's worth, and again, like you said, it's only phase 1, and that's what we have to put out to the public, is it's phase 1, because the approach is, and it alleviates some problems. It gives you some buy-in time for the big picture, which the big picture is obviously you're either going to go public safety or you're going to be doing two new buildings. But I think that allows that development along Route 20 to grow and put money in the town's pockets, so to speak, so that it's probably more palatable down the road.
In the substation,
I think the thought process behind using the existing public safety building plans was that the town's already spent $1.4 million on them. And if we don't use them, we've actually wasted that $1.4 million.
I don't think anyone's saying we won't use them. I just think the thought is we're not gonna use them first. I think the chief's right. I think if you come back with a PSB, let's just check the box no today.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Right, the substation, I think the chief's also right, because that alleviates at least some of the more pressing issues. And it's actually something that could be a benefit to the PSB that eventually gets built, because you'll have that and a substation, which you're gonna need anyway.
So then the next steps would be we're going to form a committee to,
So I would recommend that, form a committee, but also probably consider using some of the ARPA money, like maybe $50,000 to kind of bring on, an architect that can kind of help guide the estimated costs and look at additional sites and kind of like help the committee steer them or steer the architect in the right direction. That's going to look at all the site considerations for sites that may be good locations for this. It's not just in the
$50,000 doesn't completely train the remaining ARPA funds in case there's other needs for the fire, police, or water, sewer.
But it would give them expertise to again have that alternate proposal of compared to the larger PSB, which again, I have to agree with the majority of the board at least. So I think if we ask for $30 to $40 million again, we're gonna get laughed at it right out of town. I think if we come up with something as an intermediary plan, I think we stand a much better chance of fixing a lot of the deficiencies,
Yeah,
at least in the short term.
the disaster at the ballot box. Plus, this, I think, also sends a message to voters who are gonna go and vote yes or no, that we are listening. We're not just gonna keep coming back every year, throwing PSB against the wall. But that, okay, we understand inflation's at a 40-year high, people are still, living check to check, the hit's gonna hurt. But we also have a critical need. So we're gonna take a step back, let's address the critical need, which will benefit the eventual overall plan.
I think we need to be very careful to present an overall strategy of this kind of, and present to the public. We need a substation, we need something, so the substation is the first piece of the plan, but I think we do have a lot of educated voters, so if they can see the strategy, that this is the first step to get this, and then, this is the second step, kind of like pieces to get to the whole.
Yeah, you're
I
spending.
don't think any plan works without the educational piece.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're gonna spend over $500,000 just on rehabbing something. Then think about the cost for the equipment, or if there's failed trucks because they're in it. How much does the truck cost, chief?
Depends what you're looking at. A ladder, you can go up as high.
I'm going big.
1.5.
I would say 1.4.
So you have a piece of equipment that costs $1.5 million that's rotting out there in the salt and snow. 600,000 to repair a building. You have to, if nothing else, you're gonna spend the money on that, or at least get that substation going so we can get that stuff and get some of this rectified.
And that would be, so you could build a substation and put tower one inside.
Depending on the size of it, right, depending on
Yeah,
the size of the
to
base.
get it out of that 10.
So-
Quantum hunters.
I'm gonna make a motion.
We have to alleviate this problem.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah,
because this is immediate.
no, it definitely needs.
I would make a motion to authorize $50,000 from the chief to get the architects to work with him on beginning the plan for substation. And
Is that
I think-
along with the committee?
That was-
I was actually gonna say yes, and also to establish a committee to work with the chief. This board, I guess, come up with the chief on who should be on that committee. But I think that's just like water, sooner rather than later.
And who was on that committee or?
You gotta have fire, you gotta have selectmen, maybe someone with building background chief.
Yeah, I mean, I would, me personally, I think the last committee was probably a tad too large, but
How many people are on that one?
4 from the public and 2, at least 2 each from police.
Yeah.
So we think 5 max.
I think 5 is a good one.
I think that's a good number, but I think we need at least one.
Well, you
just
got the chief, Andrew,
One resident.
sorry. If you have
I
chief,
wanna be on it.
if you have chief Andrew, a selectman, a builder and a resident, you get this, you have 5, I think. We touched on everything we need to, a resident, a builder, board, fire. Am I missing something?
What are we doing? Actually, I will second for discussion, but what are we doing for the police? And I'm asking sincerely because the answer may be nothing right now, and that's not a terrible answer. But they're gonna have the same, or they're gonna have similar asks, not, in my opinion, not quite as important as the fire department asks, but they need a lot of help over there too. So, I mean, I'm okay proceeding with, hey, let's go take a look at this one, but we can't be under the illusion that we can't do, that we can ignore the deficiencies in the police,
Right,
in
so
the physical
So
building.
while we're kind of, going on one direction, we're gonna throw $1 million into a temporary bill as a temporary fix when that money could be used for something bigger. So
Exactly.
I think that's part of a longer discussion.
Yeah.
That we need to have maybe a working meeting. I know no one wants to go to long meetings, that we really sit down and kind of just have a long discussion about literally, just
Yeah, absolutely.
create.
I'm okay starting with this tonight. I have zero problem
You
with
also
that. I
have
just want to make
Also
sure.
have the police chief come in and have the same conversation, because
Absolutely.
what Chief Trump's talking about, substation benefits us, whether we build the PSB or not. The
Right,
substation's a
right.
benefit,
It does.
and so if we don't have the PSB, they still need the substation,
Yeah.
and doing some rehab on the police station or whatever that may be, we can't have that conversation until Dan comes in.
No, I just want to make sure that that's not that's, I want to see forgotten about, but let's just make sure
I
that
don't think
that's.
this board will ever
Yeah.
forget about
I was
police
gonna
police or
say.
fire.
Just to make sure. So, but that being said,
Or highway.
I'm all in favor of this.
Yeah. You sure you want a 5 or, because the last committee was like 15 people. It was huge versus
It
5
seemed
seems
that way.
small.
It's
I
five-
think,
Am I
I
wrong?
didn't know, it seemed that way sometimes, but I think.
Police
it was
wanted to,
9,
though,
I
so
think it
that's-
was.
that's-
Highest we went.
You want to start with 5? If we have to bump it up, we can always bump it up.
I think if we're, the scope of it is pretty direct and finite,
At least for now,
at
right?
least for now.
Come up with
And we may
something
come
original.
up with, based on the work that Andrew put together here is, we may come back and say. "It's not feasible,"
Or it's $14,000 and it doesn't, $14 million. and it
Yeah, that's what I
doesn't
mean,
make
yeah.
any sense not to do the.
That's why I think when we get the tentative results back, we can then compare it to the original plan and say, all right, let's weigh, return on investment and find out what makes more sense, but yeah.
I just kind of think it gives you an opportunity to allow the new growth to come in and give you a better sense of what the town's gonna be able to do moving forward. Again, it goes back to, the infrastructure that you've got to put in place before you do anything.
The bottom line is, no matter what we believe or know, voters have to say yes to it.
Oh, no.
So it
No
has to be
doubt.
something that they're
This is
gonna-
something that's sellable. It's.
Well, the chief is right about
either
education, so.
Either we have what we have, which is an absolute disaster.
Right, so
or-
but we had education for the PSB, or at least we believe there's a lot of effort put into that. So we have to educate the public. And that's everything, but it has to be not only education, but it's gonna have to be, like Steve also alluded to. We have to come back with something that says, okay, yeah, this is actually feasible and quote sellable, because no matter what we believe, if the voters say no, we're still back to zero.
Yeah, no, I think we're all saying the same thing. Yeah. We need something that will pass. Let's put it that way. That
So you
works.
have my motion.
Well,
to-
and something that passes is something that's for the future.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
And that could be sold as part of the future.
Because you can't just sell a substation and then everybody says, okay, well, you got your new building.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm with it.
Right.
Just have to be that
That's gonna be-
transparency needs to be
but
there. I
that's-
think
That creates a different, more difficult solvent next time around.
But still.
Well, right, but the chief has some points there. Hopefully the commercial tax base has changed at that time, and the financial picture is also different.
Yeah, my second
It
stands
helps
on,
them, right?
my second stands on David's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
And
Thank
just
you.
so you know, I was throwing around random things and I said, what if we put the senior center in the new public safety building? Will all the seniors now vote and we have all the votes to make it and will they all share the space? So another random creative thought, but every senior I talked to went, yeah, wow. So I'm just saying, it's no one likes it. Everybody here was like, whoa, we can't put all those.
I
people
don't know
together.
if you want all that traffic with
Right.
emergency vehicles coming in and out of said facility.
Come up with plans, that's all I'm asking, alternatives.
That's
No,
it.
no, you guys might not like it, but they like it and they
They've
vote.
given
So
them
I'm
a
just.
separate
You just voted
driveway.
against it, though.
Most definitely
Against
so.
what?
The public safety bill.
Who voted against? What do you?
You did.
Or just
For
now.
what? Right now?
No, you just talked against it.
No, I didn't. I said, let's put a senior center in it and get it passed. That's what I said.
Regarding the senior center and community center, I would recommend that we also form let's say a 7-person committee. To basically come up with plans to take a look, again, if it's still available. I know it was, told us that it was a very hot commodity, so I don't know if Charles Furniture is still on the market or not.
So
But, basically take a look at like everything, come up with a bunch of alternatives, and let's start that plan
you want to
formally.
go with 7 or 5? Just because the more people we put on the committee, sometimes the less gets done and the harder it is to find enough.
I
people.
think this one, because it's more vague, I think we need 7, because I think we're kind of defined on the fire department, kind of like what we're looking for. I mean, I would recommend at least for now, 7, but if the board feels 5 for the
What's
senior
this?
center
What's
community.
to account? So you want a member of the board of selectmen, probably if you can, a member of FinCom. Council on Aging, that's 3.
Mhm.
A citizen, hopefully one who's a senior, and one who isn't a senior,
That's 5 right there.
that's 5. Am I missing something?
But I think there multiple, a lot of seniors did kind of have been showing.
Well,
up.
they can still,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, 20 people can come to their meetings, they just don't necessarily have,
Is this the goal of that new committee to just look at Dresser Hill or to look at other?
other options.
I would say take a look at everything.
and
Really,
come back
just
to
That's,
it?
that is,
What are the
yeah,
other
clear that up in your motion. 'cause it
To
can
come
be
up
more
with,
occupied.
with 3 or 4 more options, or 3 or 4 different options to say, senior center alone, join community center, bring the cable in. I mean, come up with a bunch of different ideas.
Put it in the chief's building.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think the basement would be.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my motion, and I'm fine going with 5 people for now.
So that would be the makeup then.
Yeah.
So do I have to repeat them?
So we have a motion and it's for 5 people.
5 people, a member from this board, which could be a board member or Andrew, depending on if someone steps up or if he wants to do it. There was a member of FinCom to be asked to please be on it. Council on Aging, and 2 residents, one who's currently a senior and one who's not a senior.
Works for me.
Have a
Second.
second on? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well done. Thanks, chief. Thanks, Jeff. What are you guys still hanging around? Now what do you want?
One more?
I'm sorry, was there an executive session item on here for?
There is, but it's also on here as the firefighters union contract.
Because we haven't-
Yeah, we have to go
yeah,
into
yeah,
exec.
yeah.
So that's,
Publicly
so now we're,
access.
so as far as old business, we're just gonna roll right through these.
I got nothing.
I got nothing.
TA's goals and objectives, we got nothing. Town administrator report.
Police dispatch renovations are ongoing right now. They've completely moved into the basement and dispatch's white is basically clear in there. So if you go in, you'll have to use the phone to reach somebody, but somebody will be right up to answer the phone. It should take about 2 weeks to complete and we'll be back up and running, basically a brand new dispatch setup there, still under the same space. We are working through changing our payroll servicing provider from Harper's to ADP. We're looking at mid-August for a transition to them, so that's moving along well. I know both Ashley and Lynn are gonna be very busy this summer, so lucky them. And then 54 Flint Road, we have completed the survey on the old town landfill. Needed to proceed with the landfill closure, so we could continue to work with CMG Environmental to get that moving.
Very good. So our next meeting announcement will be, Board of Selectmen's regular meeting will be July 2nd, July 12th, 2022, 6:30 PM. In this meeting room. I will
Mr.
accept
Chair,
a motion that we move into executive session.
I take a motion to enter executive session to MGL chapter 38, section 21A, number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate, the fire department lease property. If the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of public body, and MGL chapter 30A, section 21A, number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining litigation fire union. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, the chair so declares, and to reconvene to open session if needed and to adjourn.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Cool. We are in executive, and
You're
we'll probably
on
come back out and
executive
take a
session,
vote.
but yeah, we probably will come back out to vote, but.
One-
Or to